The public meeting is now commencing with the consent agenda, and today we're going over items 27102 to 27147. Please note the conditions of approval is recommended by the various committees, and staff has noted that remarkably there are no recusals. Anything that has been overlooked? No. Let the record show there are no recusals. And for the consent items, no members of the public have signed up to testify on any of these. Am I correct in that statement? So let the record show no one wishes to testify on the consent agenda. So can I have a motion to approve? Motion. Second. All in favor of the approving consent agenda, please raise your right hand. Okay, it is unanimous. So now moving on to the rest of the public hearing. So on the agenda today is the reconstruction of the perimeter streetscape and park entrance, including the installation of a bike lane at Prospect Park, Ocean Avenue between Flatbush and Parkside Avenue, and Parkside Avenue between Ocean Avenue and Parade Place. So per standard procedure, we will let our presenters make their statement. We will then open it up to the public. We have names of those people who have signed up to testify, and then we will make our comments and vote. So please start.
Good morning, I'm Justine Handler from Prospect Park Alliance, and this is Acacia Duclair from the Department of Transportation. We'll be presenting this together. The purpose of this project is to reconstruct and improve the sidewalks for both the pleasure and safety of pedestrians who use it, as well as accommodating increased demand for safe separate bike lanes as part of a larger DOT initiative. As you can see, the funding has come from several sources, and we are hoping to get this through and make a great design for the park. Acacia will walk through the beginning of the project to explain how we got to the design that we're going to present to you today.
And just to start off, since the street is where the park intersects with the street grid, it's really a great opportunity to collaborate with parks in this way, especially from the DOT perspective. Our focus is Vision Zero and reducing traffic fatalities. That's been in the news a lot, so whenever we can collaborate with other agencies and include these kind of design treatments, it makes our work go further. So just for where we're at, the southeast corner of Prospect Park, we're looking at Ocean Avenue from Flatbush down to Parkside and wrapping around on the sidewalk onto Parkside. The bike lane component is only on Ocean Avenue. There are future plans for bike facilities on Parkside, but they won't be part of this capital project. And to speak a little bit about cycling in New York City, especially cycling in Brooklyn, I wanted to give you some of the background and numbers that we always look to when we're designing these kind of projects. Over the last few years, we've seen that the number of people choosing to bike to work has grown by 65%. These are people who aren't just going out for recreational rides, they're choosing to get to work by bicycle and run any other errands associated with that. So our group, the bicycle unit at the DOT, is tasked with matching and meeting that kind of growth by installing bike facilities throughout the city. And we've done that in Brooklyn over the last few years, installing 65 lane miles. And that's shown on this map here. It's at a small scale, but you can see the density of the bike lanes in northern Brooklyn, connecting to the central business districts, those East River crossings, to really build out the core. And it's something that's missing from southern Brooklyn, and that's been an ongoing focus for us because we've identified community boards where there have been a lot of cyclist injuries and fatalities and a lack of cyclist bicycling infrastructure there for them. And so the geographical link between the existing network and where we're trying to go to provide more bike facilities for people is Prospect Park. So Prospect Park provides a lot of other opportunities when we're thinking about the bike network. Besides it being a destination in its own right, the street grid around it provides an edge condition. That's a long stretch of road that lacks intersections. So it's a nice place to walk, jog, or ride a bike without needing to contend with vehicle crossings. The other thing that is worth considering in putting bicycle facilities on the streets outside of the park is that it provides two-way access 24 hours a day. So the park is closed, and so those routes that exist inside the park, mainly for recreation, aren't available at all times of the day when people are moving around the city. Bike lanes around the edges would also increase access to the new park entrances that are planned through this capital work with the Parks program, and connect the network that I was speaking about towards the north down to future networks in the south. And we're looking at how this node could be built out. We've recently presented protected bike lanes on Flatbush Avenue. That's something that our agency is looking to implement later this year. We're talking about Ocean Avenue with you here today, and still in development will be future plans to include similar facilities on Parkside Avenue and Prospect Park Southwest. Some more context about the street network around the park. As you know, there's been multi-year efforts to remove vehicles from the park to increase safety once you're inside there. The last closure was in 2018, and to account for the increased vehicle traffic outside the park once that Park Drive East was closed, there were signal timing improvements and new roadway designs to accommodate those vehicles that would be using the street network instead of the park. And while we've measured that travel times have not significantly increased, it's really important to note that Ocean Avenue is one of the alternate routes, and so that's where the traffic that used to use the park is currently going, and it has only so much capacity and so much flexibility to go back and change the road and markings there today. So existing conditions on Ocean Avenue, right now there's 2 vehicle lanes in each direction during the peak hours. Parking is allowed at the curb during the non-peak. There's about 860 vehicles heading north in the AM and about 780 heading back in the PM peak. I've already talked about the edge condition, an ideal place to provide protected bike lanes that don't intersect with a lot of vehicle crossings. That kind of bike lane is the kind that is the most comfortable and appealing for anybody who wants to try to ride a bike for the first time or is used to cycling in the city streets. Other north-south corridors south of Empire Boulevard that could possibly be considerations for extending this network to the south might be Flatbush Avenue. It's a lot busier street, it's a lot wider, it's a truck lane. There's about 40% more average daily traffic there than on Ocean Ave. There's the intersections to contend with, so you don't have that nice edge condition where you can build out a protected bike lane. Bedford Avenue is even further from the park. It's not directly connected to Grand Army Plaza and does not provide access to the park. I'm going to hand it over to Justine to talk a little bit more about the existing conditions on Ocean Avenue.
I'll go through these pretty quickly. So the existing condition, as Acacia described, is a very long, continuous sidewalk. It's 10 feet wide, grass and cobble verge, a 10-foot wide sidewalk, and then another 10-foot wide grass and cobble verge. That's the typical design all the way around the park. And that is the original Olmsted and Bob's vision of the park, a continuous promenade with an alley of trees on either side. Just moving from north to south, so this is looking at the connection with Flatbush Avenue. This was done more recently with the cobbles and the exposed aggregate pavement. And then as you go down, this is the intersection looking towards where Ocean and Flatbush come together. As you move further down Ocean Avenue, the sidewalk condition deteriorates. It hasn't been renovated recently. And we see an inconsistency of these concrete cobbles, which are not reinforced with granite, they're not holding up well. We don't see street furniture that's in good condition or in consistent placement. Trees there are some that are quite mature, there are many missing trees. As we come around to the entrance of Ocean and Parkside Avenue, I'll come back to this, but it's no longer used as a vehicular entrance. So part of this project is reflecting that with a continuous, more cohesive pavement treatment. And also, as you can see, it's in not very good shape. And then on Parkside Avenue, we don't really have lighting. And again, the pavement hasn't been restored, hasn't been redone in many, many years. We don't have furnishings everywhere. So on Parkside Avenue, it's just a straight up restoration project. And Acacia is going to talk, sorry, we're going back and forth, but Acacia is going to talk about the bike lane design and the various options that we looked at about how to accommodate this.
So we'll focus on the dimensions that we're working with. We've got the 10-10-10 sidewalk and tree alley configuration right next to the park. And then currently, for 50 feet, we've got the 2 travel lanes at all times of the day, northbound and southbound, and the curbside lanes are used for parking outside of that peak. There's a little bit of extra space that is currently buffered out as a painted median. And so we'll look at the different configurations that we considered before we landed on our final design. One study considered keeping the curbs as they are, but widening the sidewalk, cutting into the amenity strips next to it, and designating the sidewalk as both for pedestrians and cyclists. This keeps the curbs where they are, but is not ideal for mixing cyclists and pedestrians, especially at the bottom, so we expect to see next to the park here. And it's my understanding that this design came with some of the largest tree removals. Another study that we considered was splitting that 2-way bike traffic, maybe using some of the extra width of the roadway to put one direction of cyclist travel here, and then combining the other direction on a sidewalk that could be widened a little bit. Although this gives some flexibility for people traveling next to each other, it's determined that this would lead to confusion and most likely wrongly writing in both areas. Another consideration was to build a meandering sidewalk, something that worked around existing trees. Again, that would put cyclists and pedestrians in a shared space that's a little narrow and would create pinch points along the way. It would also result in the amenity strip being of varying widths and not providing the space for continuous trees to be planted there to match that historical context. And another consideration was to keep the curb as is, use the extra road width outside of the curb, and take some room from the amenity strip on the opposite side of the street to provide a separated bike path. That would result in the inability to put trees along the residential side of the street. So the design that we landed on was to maintain a 10-foot wide sidewalk, maintain a consistent amenity strip so that the trees could be planted consistently for the majority of the project, provide a consistent width or a 2-way bike lane that is separated by grade from traffic and separated physically for most of the corridor from pedestrians by the row of trees. The benefit of this is that there is designated space for all modes of travel. And the other benefit of something like this is that by building out this curve, anybody who wishes to cross the street to get to the park has a shorter distance to go at the mid-block crossings along the corridor. We presented this project in June with Parks at their community scope meeting, and we also presented to Community Board 9, their transportation committee, and their full board at their invitation.
What kind of reception did you get?
There was mixed reception like many of our bike projects. People who are hoping to access the park safely, want to keep their kids on bikes there. We're happy to see plans to include bike lanes. There are concerns about cyclist education, and that's something else that our agency does. We send out teams to the street to remind cyclists the rules of the road. I think the main takeaway is the equity issue of the bike lanes on Prospect Park West. They've been there for 10 years. They've shown to decrease speeding and decrease traffic crashes, as well as encouraging cycling there. And this side of the park, both on Flatbush and Ocean, has not been able to see similar benefits and have that access to the park in the same way as the other side. I'm going to hand it back over to Justine.
So I will quickly walk through our proposed design. So this is the schematic proposed plan based on that last study that you saw. And this is very tiny, it's hard to see, but what I just wanted to out, or the darker green circles will be the newly planted trees. So you can see it's quite a lot of them, and the entire outer edge will be new trees. And then on Parkside, it's more spotty because we're filling in with existing trees that aren't being removed or taken out unless for condition reasons. So we'll use this to talk about just the typical design. So you have the existing green 10-foot wide verge, a 10-foot wide sidewalk with the exposed aggregate concrete, which is what we use on all of our perimeter. The outer verge will be 7 to 8 feet wide. It varies a little bit just based on the road geometry. And then the 8-foot wide bike lane with a 2 to 3 foot wide buffer between the bike lane and the traffic. We'll be planting new trees wherever they are missing on the interior side. And because of this reconstruction, we will be removing trees on the outer side, and those will all be replanted. Once that we determined our possible transplant possibilities, we will be transplanting to other places on the perimeter of the park. At intersections, the treatment varies a little bit depending on what's going on in the intersection. Feel free to interrupt with questions as we go. So this is at that north end where the bike lane and the sidewalk will wrap around and go back down to road grade on Flatbush Avenue. We'll leave the cobble that is there, that was done more recently on the interior side, but that grass verge will come up to the corner. And then the bike lane will mount the sidewalk. There will be directional markings on the pavement to show that it's a shared space, and we'll come back down. So here you're looking at the section of existing and proposed, a typical section on Ocean Avenue. 10-foot wide sidewalk, 10-foot wide verge with either trees or furnishings, and then the park interior. So you see that the curb is moving out into the roadway to accommodate the bike lane. And then we'll have a slightly narrower verge with new historic light poles and street trees, the sidewalk, and then the 10-foot wide verge where we'll be replacing the borough president benches with new ones, putting in historic light poles and waste recyclables. This is at that Lincoln Road entrance. This is the biggest interruption of the path. We have a vehicular entrance here. It's not used all the time, but it is used for events, for Smorgasburg, that kind of thing. So here the bike lane swings in to allow for the bus stop. I think there's a bus stop over there as well. And at those points, it will come down to street level and go back up. And there will be a wide curb cut for both pedestrians and bicyclists. The cobble edge that is a buffer along the bike lane will become wider at this point, and we'll use a sawn face so that it's accessible there. Then moving along the stretch of Ocean Avenue, it's pretty standardized all the way down with a widening of the pavement for bus stops and crosswalks where those happen. And this is a view of that typical Ocean Avenue bike lane situation. Existing and proposed. At the entrance, as I mentioned in the introduction, there will no longer be a vehicular entrance coming into the park. So we'll be paving that over at a continuous elevation so that it becomes more of a pedestrian plaza. And the bike lane, at this point, moves in to allow for a turning lane at the corner. And then it swings behind these planters, which are existing, behind the planter, in front of the trees, which are also existing, right through there. And then it goes down onto the road level for that future bike lane dedication mentioned. So zooming in a little bit, you can see that a little bit better. That yellow box is where the Shirley Chisholm Monument is going to be. That project is coming along a little behind this one, but we'll be coordinating with them pretty extensively. That is all in front of the bike lane and in front of the park entrance. And this is showing the circulation at this area. It's definitely going to be complicated, but the orange line is showing the bike lane. So where you're coming up Ocean Avenue, going from south to north, the bicyclists will be able to come onto the sidewalk and then get onto that bike lane there. And there will be markings on the pavement. The circulation for pedestrians, people can go wherever they want in this plaza, but there are paths for them to do it without interacting with the bike lane, except where bicyclists might turn into the park. Acacia, is there anything that you want to add about this? Yeah, there was a question about crossing at this intersection, but there is a bike box that allows bicyclists to get in front of the vehicular traffic to make that crossing.
Can you describe the paved material on the orange line as it goes into the park between the tree and the, because it's gray and then it's not, it's light gray and.
I think that we will, this is kind of coming with the design of the monument, but this is, for now, concrete, and that's what the sidewalk is. This will be a concrete band here, Mesa beige, with a decorative extension joint pattern. Right, the bike lane. The bike lane, I think, will just have markings, but it will grade back down to an asphalt path as it enters the park.
But the one that goes on the arc.
If it's
the arc,
helpful
what's
to
going
know
on the arc here?
that this will be an asphalt patch here and here. It's kind of a breadcrumb to tell cyclists exactly where they should go through the corner. Here, it drops to show that the priority is to pedestrians that are coming through.
So they dismount or they're going to just turn and keep riding?
They're not instructed to dismount. There's signage that implies or that tells them that they should be yielding to pedestrians here. There's also markings that you can't really see at this scale that are yield signs to cyclists. As they come through here, they should be looking for pedestrians crossing in front of them.
I think you should study a little more in terms of, we should try to anticipate more people coming to this new structure in the future, and also it feels a little bit like an accident waiting to happen in terms of bike and pedestrian traffic. Is there any way to sort of monitor the speed level, not perhaps with maybe those buffers on our floor coming up to this corner on either side or from any sort of entrance, so that when the bikes start getting to this point, they're forced to slow down, or not just like with a light, which would be I think would be useful as well, but it's like coming up to those corners, maybe some of those buffer.
Something more
Call them rumble strips?
Yes,
signage.
I'm just, so that they're physically, an announcement of slow down.
Sure. There's additional markings that we install on bike lanes, especially when they're coming up to areas where there's high pedestrian activity. One example is rumble strips, which is built up paint or other material that has a real physical reaction.
And also, I'm a little concerned about this entrance right in the middle, that orange line that goes right to the center of the corner. Is there any way to perhaps study if that lane should just curve in anticipation on that side of the street? On the right side where there is no markings? Yeah, so
The idea of indicating that
Like
cyclists should go
this?
here.
should it maybe curve this way and then come down that way instead of coming straight into it? 'Cause, you know what I mean? Is
Sure.
there-
We looked at what it would be like to send the cyclist across here, but with the pedestrians crossing here, if we could avoid that and have them enter at the corner, that was less of a conflict.
We need to hold our questions until the public speaks. Please go on.
So we did include a couple of the artist renderings of this corner. They're very schematic, and they've already gotten a lot of feedback that they are working on to develop their design. But we thought it was a good view just to see how that bike lane is circling around behind it. Here's the vehicular corner here. And here's a view if you were coming up from Ocean Avenue approaching the corner, you'd see that bike lane there. So then as you turn around the corner and go on Parkside, as I mentioned, this is really just a restoration project. At this point, the bike lane is on the street in for later project. And so what we'll be doing here is replacing trees, taking out the concrete cobble, repaving the sidewalk, adding new street furniture and lighting. And the geometry stays the same, 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet. You can see right now, old pavements, missing furniture, no lights, and we're proposing to put those in with the same materials we use everywhere on our park perimeter. So, tree removals. I can click through this quickly, but the red X's represent trees removed for design. The blue pluses represent trees that can be transplanted, and the gray X's are trees that have been determined to need removal for condition. Of course, this project is a couple years out, so we may lose a tree or two before we even get there. I think there was an accident that one already was hit at our north end. But as we said, unfortunately, this project does require the removal of the trees on the exterior edge. We're happy that we can plant an entire row of new trees along the way. And so here, approaching the corner, the open X is a stump removal. There are a couple of stumps along the way as well. And then you see some X's within the park interior. Those are also condition removals that where the tree overhangs the sidewalks. We'll be removing trees that are in danger or dead already. This is our existing tree palette. They are all different ages. They've been planted many times over the years. The original tree palette on the side of the park, the exterior, were elms along Parkside Avenue, both sides of the sidewalk, and maples around the rest of the perimeter. Neither of those are ideal today. I mean, we like to plant a variety of trees now and try not to have a monoculture. And also elms and maples are both hosts for Asian longhorn beetle, or for Dutch elm disease and Asian longhorn beetle. So we want to have a variety of trees that we're adding that's a little bit more of a mix. So we're proposing to add 3 types of oaks, seedless sweet gum, and American linden. This palette could be nuanced further. We're working with our forestry and street tree team to do that, but this is what we picked these trees because in form they will create that continuous, elegant alley along the way. And they have a similar growth habit to each other, so we can have a mix that still looks harmonious in the way that Olmsted and Fox envisioned. And we'll do an alternating pattern of those trees. The top is kind of an ideal. If you had no trees, that's what the pattern would be. The next one is showing how it is when you're mixed in with the existing trees that are in the interior. And then the bottom is showing on Parkside Avenue. It will still feel like more of a mix because we aren't removing any mature trees from that area. Our furnishings will be the historic light poles and sign poles as we've used on all of our park perimeter. Exposed aggregate concrete pavement, case of age. The asphalt will just be a standard black asphalt with color seal paint markings. Baroque resident bench. The granite curb with cobble will look something like this, with the granite curb and then about 1.5 feet of cobble. And the decorative raised side. So that's it for our presentation questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will call on members of the public in the order in which they've been signed up. And apologies in advance if I butcher anybody's name. So first we have Kristen Oblonsky. Please. And we have 3 minutes, and there's a clock, and I'll give you a 15-second one.
Great, thank you. Rising out of bed, hopefully before 6:45 to chug a cup of coffee, I kiss my partner goodbye. I say ride safe, safe ride, an important difference between the standard ride safe, because my partner believes it infers that he doesn't. It puts additional onus on him, a bike messenger, to take even safer decisions, all to make sure he gets home to me in the evening, which luckily every day so far he has. We kiss, I love you, safe ride. He cycles up Ocean Avenue past double parked cars, turns right onto Empire Boulevard besides cars speeding past yellow lights, until finally turning left to bike through almost every neighborhood in Brooklyn, fighting the cars he hopes will share the road, but making proactive decisions because he knows they usually don't. But it's barely 8 a.m., and for 1 year I've worked from home in the neighborhood I've lived in for even more. My love of conquering the bridges that connect Brooklyn to Manhattan on the single speed I've had since college is on pause for now. And I've set myself to a different challenge, run 10 miles. The park is my escape from my chaotic day, and the trees a reminder that there is a bigger world outside my consistent Monday through Friday schedule. So I run, I work my day, and I think about my partner, and how at the end of the day, he'll have to compete for space with overrushed commuters yielding 3 tons of metal. And how from Eastern Parkway to Beverly Road, he'll have no protection other than the helmet his dad bought for him. I replay what our last moments would be. I think through how I'd convince his family of the funeral we've already planned together. I'm supposed to rise up, and how everyone will take to the streets donning two wheels because we had a soul taken away from us. Because the streets prioritize the 1%, they're protected by a police force that tickets the weak, and we live in a city that is too burdened by red tape to do anything about it. But I'm acting crazy, right? He'll be home later, and not because he's a strong, safe, and experienced rider, but because of dumb luck and statistics, that he won't be the 16th rider to be killed in New York City this year. I believe everyone has the right to safe transit, and everyone should feel supported making environmentally friendly and healthy decisions. We need this bike lane, we need to plant more trees, and I believe that we deserve to live in a city where we and future generations can thrive.
Thank you. Perfect. I'm done. Stanley Greenberg.
Hi. My name is Stanley Greenberg. I'm a photographer and the author of 3 books about New York, the most recent based on a walk of every block in Manhattan. I live at 163 Ocean Avenue, across the street from Prospect Park and the planned bike lane. I believe I'm probably more on the fence, as it were, in this debate about trees and bike lanes than almost anyone else. And after much thought, I have decided to support the current plan. As one of the early members of the Ocean by the Park Tree Club, I helped create a survey that determined just how few street trees there were on the east and south sides of the park, as compared to the sides bordering on wealthier neighborhoods. This led to the Parks Department's planting many new street trees over the last 2 years. I also helped write the original participatory budgeting project to improve the physical conditions of the park perimeter along Ocean Avenue. With the assistance of Council Member Eugene and Borough President Adams, and then the involvement of DOT, this project grew into the plan you are evaluating. I've also been involved for decades in the battle for safer streets for pedestrians and cyclists, working to make the park car-free and advocating for a citywide network of protected bike lanes. My biggest problem with the present plan is that it will not slow down Ocean Avenue. It will still look and feel like a highway during rush hour, when there are 2 lanes of car traffic in one direction each morning and afternoon. And it will still be difficult and dangerous to cross the street because of poor signage and signals and almost constant disregard for red lights and daily parking and pedestrian crosswalks. Yet DOT insists that cars take precedence. Every Sunday, 30 to 40 cars for churchgoers double park on my block. There's enough room for them, but not enough room to extend the bike lane further into the street and save many of the trees. But this battle is with DOT, not parks, and I don't think you have the power to force DOT to put the road on a diet and give some space to cyclists. It troubles me that so many trees are to be lost in this construction project, especially since I helped get them planted. I'm told by the Parks Department that many of the older trees are nearing the end of their lifespan, and many are susceptible to invasive pests. And it is extremely difficult to watch human lives being lost. I've been to too many vigils for fallen cyclists. Maybe the slight narrowing of the street will slow down the drivers a little bit. It is so dangerous to ride on the street right now that many of my friends who normally cycle to work are reconsidering their means of transit. And we are planting for the future. There will be 180 new trees for us to take care of and to watch grow. I hope you'll allow this plan to go forward and we can keep fighting to make Ocean Avenue a street for its residents rather than a speedway for drivers in a hurry.
Thank you very much. This one I'm going to butcher. Michael Trigger. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Justine and Acacia. My name is Michael Drinkard. I live in Park Slope. I also serve on the Prospect Park Community Committee and an advisory council of transportation alternatives. I support this project because it's safe, it's equitable, and it holds true to the vision of Olmsted and Walks. My wife Jill and I raised 3 kids next to the park. They learned how to ride bikes in the park. They raked, they planted the trees actually in that corner on the park side of Ocean Avenue, those planters. They played sports, they went on school field trips. They grew up in the park. We love the park. Let's talk about safety. This year, most of you know 15 bike riders have been killed on the streets of New York City, and 2,000 or more have been injured. There have been over 100 traffic deaths year to date, over 5,000 pedestrian injuries. I've linked the NYPD traffic stat report that shows these numbers to this state for you to review afterwards. Let's talk about equity. Those of us who live on the west side of the park have enjoyed the Prospect Park West two-way protected bike lane since 2010. That has reduced injuries for pedestrians and motorists as well as cyclists. It's time the east side gets equitable treatment, and this project does that. The DOT and the Alliance leadership presented to COMCOM drafts of this plan. They listened to us. None of us on COMCOM want to see a single tree removed. We do understand the necessity for it, especially when nearly twice as many trees will be planted as are being removed. I've also linked to the Tree Keeper database in this document, so you can pre-use the inventory. The Alliance's inventory, they have the 30,000 trees thus far. It's interesting if you like that stuff. I happen to like that stuff. And let's talk about aesthetics. It's been a compromise. The DOT, we really appreciate the commitment to safe streets. The Alliance, we appreciate their commitment to park goers and to the aesthetic vision of Olmsted and Watts. And I think this project does do both of those. It achieves both of those goals, and I fully support it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seth Catlett?
Hello, my name is Seth Kaplan. This plan is about adding and not subtracting. A few years ago, a fellow community member surveyed this long block along the park. There were 65 empty tree pits. There were 17 tree pits with stumps. That's more than half of the pits empty or with stumps. On the other side of Prospect Park, the rate was less than 7%. So, in my opinion, this isn't a plan about cutting down trees. This is about adding amenities, including more trees than we've had for many years. These are amenities this community needs, that it wants, and that it deserves. This plan comes from the community of Prospect Lefferts Gardens, not from the park, not from the city, not from the city council or the borough president. We requested that the longest continuous block in Brooklyn receive the revival and restoration it deserves. And through the generous support of our council, the borough president, and Prospect Park, we have funding and a design that brings new lighting, new sidewalks, new benches, new trees, new trash receptacles, and a new bike path that will culminate in the city's monument for Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American woman to serve in Congress. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Elisa De Jesus. And I believe you're speaking for 2 people, right?
Hello, my name is Calista, and I live in Prospect Lefferts Gardens. I'm here in support of the bike lane on Ocean Avenue because I think that it would be a great addition to the Flatbush Avenue bike lane that is also a part of the broader reconstruction plan. Prospect Park is the closest thing to a backyard that I have. It's my zen space to relax, and also where I enjoy barbecues with family, concerts with friends, and recreation. I am never a fan of removing trees, but we must consider the enhanced safety that will benefit hundreds of pedestrians and cyclists with the addition of a protected bike lane. Besides, even more trees will be planted to replace the ones being removed. This is about more than just trees. This is an equity issue. The eastern side of the park has long been more neglected And finally, in 2019-2020, our community will enjoy the same upgraded fencing, fixtures, and safety enhancements that the western side has enjoyed for a decade. Our community deserves to have a protected bike lane for increased accessibility, and with the rising fatalities of cyclists in New York City so far this year, a protected bike lane is more urgent than ever. I urge the members of this committee to continue with the original plan of including the bike lane on Ocean Avenue. As a resident from the eastern side of the park, my community is finally receiving the improvements that are long overdue. We love the park and value the trees, but we also must value the more precious lives of our neighbors and other park users. Let's make sure everyone can be safe and keep our park fully accessible to everyone. This will be a win for our community. Thank you. Now I'm reading on behalf of Eric McClure, the Executive Director of Streets PAC. As an organization that advocates for improving the safety of New York City streets, Streets PAC strongly supports the Prospect Park Alliance's proposed reconstruction of the Ocean Avenue perimeter streetscape, especially the installation of a two-way bike path at a sidewalk grade located between the amenity strip and curb. We know from numerous protected bike path projects around New York City, not to mention countless places around the globe, that such treatments provide safety benefits not only to people on bikes, but to pedestrians and drivers as well, resulting in significant increases in cycling activity while also greatly reducing cycling on sidewalks. At the same time, given the highly publicized crisis in the number of people being killed while biking in New York City this year, 50% more New Yorkers have been killed while cycling in 2019 than in all of 2018. There is a tremendous urgency to redesign our streetscapes to add life-saving protections for bicyclists. We believe that the potential life-saving aspect of this design should have precedence with the Public Design Commission, but there are other design benefits as well. The proposed project will replace large swaths of broken and uneven pavement, broken benches, deteriorated and non-existing lighting, and irregular curves. It will add many new trees in the area that needs them and will clean up and organize the amenity strip along the park perimeter. And while the project will by necessity remove a number of mature trees, a fair portion of those trees are diseased or otherwise in poor condition. A number of the existing trees will be replanted inside the park, and the new replacement trees will be more than double the number being removed. These new trees will, in not too many years, establish a fuller, more robust tree canopy along the entire project area. The bottom line of Streets PAC, however, is that the new design will improve safety for residents and visitors, will encourage and facilitate non-motorized mobility, and will improve aesthetics along Ocean Avenue. The proposed project has the support of the Prospect Park Alliance, the New York City Department of Park and Recreation, the New York City Department of Transportation, and the Landmark Preservation Committee. We strongly urge the Public Design Commission to join these other entities in supporting the proposed perimeter reconstruction of Prospect Park along Ocean Avenue. Thank you.
And the last speaker is Dulcie Canton.
Thank you, you didn't butcher my name. Hello everyone. My name is Dulcie Canton and I'm the Brooklyn Organizer for Transportation Alternatives. I'm also a member of a group that nobody wants to be a member of. It's Family for Safe Streets, a support group for victims and survivors of traffic violence. I also live in Bed-Stuy, and I'm here in support of the bike lane on Ocean Avenue because it will provide safer access to the park for residents that live east of it. Transworld helped fight to get a two-way protected bike lane on Prospect Park West nearly 10 years ago. Studies show that protected bike lanes greatly reduce the amount of injuries and deaths to pedestrians and cyclists. A few weeks ago, we learned that after 3 years of petitioning, the NYC DOT will also install a two-way protected bike lane on Flatbush Avenue. This year and the past few weeks, we have witnessed a Vision Zero emergency. Citywide, there have been 111 pedestrian deaths and 15 cyclist deaths, which far outnumbers the 10 cyclists that were killed in 2018. It should also be noted that 5 of those cyclist deaths occurred in South Brooklyn, where there were no protected bike lanes. We have been to 3 cyclist vigils in the past month. They are very heartbreaking to attend. As a survivor of a hit-and-run crash while cycling, whenever I see a ghost bike, I think to myself, whoa, that could have been me. This proposed redesign of Ocean Avenue is a transportation equity issue. Residents of Crown Heights, Flatbush, TLG, Bed-Stuy deserve to have the same safe and unfettered access to Prospect Park as the residents of Park Slope. While there may be some tree removal involved for the plan, those trees will be replaced. We urge the members of this committee to continue with the original plan, including the protected bike lane on Ocean Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, commissioners, questions, comments? I think I got it. Okay. So I just have a couple of things. I trust that you've done, where's Parks and DRB? Not the public. That you've done your due diligence that the curb can be pushed out without having a utility conflict.
There are some utilities that will need to be moved, catch basins and some fire hydrants. We're working with Sam Schwartz engineers who are doing the civil engineering for
But
that.
you don't have any sewer line or?
No.
You're good, okay. Just out of interest, what is your tree caliber threshold on transplants?
They are determined, it was trees that were 4 inches or up.
Oh, okay.
A couple of years from now, those trees might be a little bit bigger.
No, that's good. So I really appreciate everyone who spoke because I was an equal mixed minds about this when I first saw the tree removal, and it struck me how sort of sad it was that you had to, kill one benefit to get another benefit. But I am personally persuaded this is the right project. And so I just want to urge all the agencies involved to really pay special attention to the soil that you use so that these new trees have a strong, healthy chance for long-term survival and don't just try to cram them in any hole. So unfortunately, thank you. Anyone else have any comments?
Just to reiterate the point about the rumble strips.
Yes, to really pay attention to or study that joint or the corner where there's a new monument going to be placed so that perhaps there should be some buffers on the floor to force the bike to slow down at all times. So that when that curve, they have to curve or come into the corner, they could sort of anticipate pedestrians in the corner. So maybe to know a little more study about how far ahead of that corner should start doing it, or maybe past bike lights, whatever needs to happen to that corner.
So we'll get the markings, so yeah, they're included.
And I think the statue is going to be a significant component of how that.
How that all fits in, we're still working.
There's a separating curve between the bike lane and the street. What happens when there's a bus stop?
It becomes a wider paved area, and the pavement of the bike lane will also change with markings so that bicyclists know that they're going to be encountering it. It also lowers, the bus stop is still at curb height. Yeah. It's only at Hooking Road where it has to go down the street.
So it's only that, again, park set in motion, and I think we always could use, less signage is better.
Right.
And do it in some reasonable ways, so anything would be great. But it's terrific, but I think it's going to be wonderful.
That said, unfortunately, 2 members, as you might have noticed, needed to leave early, so we do not have an official quorum for voting on this project today. However, I would like those of us who remain to make a recommendation that we will make to the full commission. And do I have someone in favor of this project? A second? All in favor, please raise your right hand. So we are all in favor of this project as a committee. We will make this recommendation to the full commission, and we assume that it will receive final approval on August 12th. So thank you very much for your thoughtful testimony. Public meeting is now adjourned.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're here to present the artwork for the Stapleton Waterfront project currently under your preliminary review. D.B. Lampman is the artist who will be presenting her concept for Block Stop. But first, Sherazad Mehta from ARIF will present a brief overview of the project.
Hi, everybody. Sherazad Mehta, I'm the project manager for the ARIF design team for the Stapleton Waterfront. Just to give a quick overview of it, we are in the northeast corner of Staten Island. We're less than a mile away from St. George Ferry Terminal, and we're right on the waterfront that has amazing views of New York Harbor and most of the New York City focal points. This is kind of the neighborhood as we see. Phase 1 is the middle of the project and has been completed for several years now. And our focus is looking at the bookend of the south and the north project. The art is actually located in the northern phase, which is actually in the northern phase as a very focal point of the project. This is one of the main entrances and gateways to the Esplanade, where basically the active programming of sports courts are right adjacent to it. We have a comfort station that's right adjacent to that, and we transition to almost a very slender linear park along the Esplanade to the north. This is the existing conditions of what it looks like right now. And just really give a quick overview, it was a public process that we did for selecting the artists. PCA and EDC put together a jury that included themselves as well as our design team and a few local constituents. Susan Randolph, fine arts consultant, put together 11 shortlisted architects, artists, and we had a public process where we had the 4 presenters present to the public voted, and then at the end of the day, the jury selected D.B. Lampman, who's the local architect.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is D.B. Lampman. I am a sculptor, a resident of Stapleton, Staten Island. So the artwork, so my art practice is based out of the neighborhood. And I took my inspiration for the project, from living in Stapleton. This is some of my past work. I do large-scale pieces, some indoors and outdoors, and they're often mixed materials, and a lot of them have to do with movement and connections and the way we. So the pieces in some of these pictures have these connection points. So all of my work is often about the way in which we interact with our environment and the people around us. This is another piece I did at Fresh Hills Park, which was a temporary sculpture project with a performance component. And most recently, I did 2 pieces as part of the Sonic Gates Art Walk, which was commissioned by the Design Trust for Public Art and Staten Island Arts. I did 2 pieces in Staten Island. One of them I did with a local school, and so the children helped me design the piece and make the piece, and we installed it in Tappan Park. This is a very old piece. This is from 1998 in the Jacob Javits building in the Federal Building. Back in the days when you could just walk into the Federal Building and hang art up on the ceiling. Anyway, so the piece that we're proposing for the site is called Bachman's Knot. It is approximately 17 feet high and made out of stainless steel pipe. It'll be brushed stainless steel. The pipe is 8 inches in diameter each piece, and there's 5 components that swoop up and down and out with a wrapped piece around it. It's made out of stainless steel, marine grade stainless, with a brush finish, except for the spheres at the top, which are highly polished stainless steel. So the inspiration for the piece, because I live in Staten Island on the waterfront, my studio and I also run a nonprofit art space in the neighborhood, which was flooded during Sandy. We got about 3.5 feet of salt water. So, you know, as a Staten Islander, we were, you know, part of our interaction with the waterfront had to do with, and my inspiration for the piece had to do with recovery after the storm. So the piece itself is kind of a wave shape. And it's also a knot, and it's the Bachman's knot is a type of nautical sailor's knot. It's also used for rigging. It's a kind of a knot that you would use to hoist something up. It's a hitch, so it wraps around something and you can lift things up. So metaphorically, I was thinking about waves and how the community came together and helped rebuild the neighborhoods in Staten Island, and the knot holding it together and lifting up the community. Bachman, also coincidentally, was a famous brewery on Staten Island in the 1800s. It was at one point the largest brewery in the world, and they shipped their beers all around the world from the ports that are right where the Stapleton waterfront and the sculpture is located. So it was kind of a happy coincidence that I found that particular knot with that name, and that's where the title comes from. Because that neighborhood was, you know, a working waterfront for many, many years. This is just some technical drawings of it. The piece itself weighs about 4,700 pounds. It will be fabricated off-site and then finished on-site with some welding on place and bolt connections with a poured concrete foundation. We went back and forth a little bit with the Parks Department and have decided that it's going to be set onto a platform raised above ground just a little bit so that the plantings around it are not interfering with the visual elements at the bottom of the knot. And then, so this is a rendering of it on site. It has 5 points on the piece at the top that are these spheres. I originally wanted them to have lights in them to light up at night, so that they would look like a constellation, and the points are roughly in the position of the North Star. And so, but you know, going through the process, we decided that it was better for long-term maintenance of the piece not to have any electrical components in it. So instead, I placed these highly polished stainless steel spheres at the end. The idea being at night, the lighting, they would reflect light, and so you would get the sense of those points being sort of a constellation at the top. Rendering of it on site. It'll be sort of at this entrance, so that people can see it from different points of view, and it greets people as they would come into the park. And then we put together proposed signage to have on site that explains the piece a little bit, and the history and the ideas behind it. Thank you. Yes. There you go.
Lori, since you have to leave, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I was just, a couple of questions. It seems like it's trying to do a lot of things here. And the knot, which is, I keep looking at knots, keep wondering why it's on a bowline or something. So the Bachman knot it's not typically a nautical knot.
It's a knot
When
that,
I researched it, I'm just not
Yeah.
question your,
Yeah.
but it's not something you come across in
it's a rigging knot.
nautically.
So it's a knot that would climbers use.
Climbers.
Climbers use it to hoist themselves up a mountain.
Okay, right.
But they have historically, in my research, they they have historically been used like in the days of sale when people had to hoist things up on mats to carry things out. And just the whole tradition of knot, you know, aside from the nautical reference, just the idea of the knot being something that was holding it together.
And the ends, so rather than the two ends, I mean, okay, so I'm just back for a second. So were there other studies before you came up with this precise vision for the knot?
Yeah, so it was, I mean, it was a little bit looser. My original renderings of it were a little bit, like these pieces were a little bit sort of more stretching, reaching up. And this was a little bit, all the pieces were a little bit farther apart. There was some concern initially from Parks that we didn't want it to be climbable.
Right.
So the design was sort of reiterated several times to get it to the point where it has more of a main central column that would be harder, more like a tree or something that would be harder to.
So there's an additional piece in there, I can't zoom out, besides the rope elements?
That's another rendering.
There's another, yeah.
What's that? So it requires an additional post in there?
So there's 5 pieces, but one of the pieces wraps around and comes through.
This piece is the support. I mean, I'm an architect, so I just want to
Yeah, so there's one main piece, but all of this is sort of structural here. And the bolt connections are down on the bottom. These will have internal welds in them, so that
I mean, I
it's
guess
more.
I have to go, so I'm just going to be very straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a problem that I don't feel that the knot really expresses itself. If this is about a knot, it's supposed to be connecting two things. It seems like one end is flying up and trying to connect to the constellations, which I thought was more about the neighborhood. So that's why I'm confused about a knot standing on its end. So that's basically my question about were there other studies besides just the upright position of a rope? So, you know, one could imagine 2 ends or something, not to remake your work, but I'm just thinking about your description of what it's trying to speak to, and then what I actually see, and what somebody might think when they're looking at it, just like without reading the plan. So,
I will second that. To me, I feel that the organic quality of the work is interesting, but I also feel like that it's sort of lost and it looks more industrial than what you described in your concept. I don't mind the stainless steel. I think that could be interesting depending on the texture of the steel, but I'm not seeing what you're saying in terms of a knot. I feel it looks more like perhaps snakes or hands coming up, and the sort of the ends of I guess the fingers, the tips, they're interesting, but they're so up high that I'm not sure if they're responding to the type of, to what you're trying to do. So I would second like perhaps seeing other iterations of your concepts, like are there ones where the whole thing is in one giant knot, or do they all have to go up? Perhaps, is there some sort of other layout that you presented previously or that you might have that you can consider? Because I think that your concept, which I think is a really interesting concept of the knot, is, because of the placement of the sculpture and the location, I think it's fairly interesting in considering the water and the waves and the curves of the piece. I would like to see it further, parallel to what your concept is right now. I feel like it is more jarring and more, I dare say, like scary, like hand, then I would feel like it's basically not reading what you're saying, and the other projects that I've seen of yours are really beautiful and interesting. I just feel like this one is like you're forcing it to make this shape, but I think there's other shapes considering what you've already done before, that would also play into your concept. And I'm not sure if you consider, if it is about waves or not, perhaps it being a different color. I'm not sure what
Some of this was just the limitations in terms of the materials we were told were allowable. You know, they didn't want paint, didn't want
Right,
a
so
coating, just so it had to be. And then some of the design also got sort of tightened up a little bit, so that to adjust the fact that people couldn't climb it.
Right.
And part of what I was going for in this too is also the kind of addressing some of the natural, like the plants and the things, like seagrass and things like that was also what I was thinking of in terms of reference.
I read that the tips were sort of supposed to be shinier than the rest of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not understanding like how that relates to the actual piece, or is it, can you just explain that?
It was just a different element that I wanted those top points to kind of reference a constellation pattern at. So at night, it would be just a different visual.
So it would just be more reflective.
Just more reflective of those would shine at night, sort of out at sea.
I mean, I personally like the combination of organic and industrial in concept. I feel like you should try to reconsider the massing or the way the knot comes around. Maybe there should be one giant knot, or maybe all of the things should be spiral. I'm not really, I don't want to design for you because it's your work, but I think perhaps your concept should be a little bit more in line with what we're seeing, because right now it doesn't feel, it was a little arbitrary, or like you're forcing to the map parameters of whatever everyone else is telling you, but you know, they should be helping you and allow with some space, you know what I mean? So that your vision could be put on in this project. So I'm not sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would say that when I see it just as a read, I mean, the serialization might make it feel different. And I get the organic quality and the each one is all that's very legible, but I do kind of get a sense of snakes too, like Hydra. So, and it does feel a little bit aggressive. That may change based on the serialization, but I just want to, I mean, it resonates with me to see what you say. I mean, in and of itself, you know, I like what it is. But there is a bit of a read for me. Well, I think that's 10 minutes. This is fine.
I just want to say, I thought your concept behind the project is really beautiful, very moving, and my read was not so much the Hydra, but it looks like the knots unraveling.
Right.
And because you just spoke now so eloquently about the community kind of coming together, I mean, I honestly have not looked at what this knot is, but it just seems to me that it's kind of unraveling. And that's the part that I guess kind of concerns me, because it's such a beautiful part of your thought process. So again, I don't know whether it was more raveled, but it was deemed climbable or something. So
it was, so like there was like height issues and stuff. So maybe.
I think that, you know, I think what we're all saying here is that we really support your concept and the sort of motivation behind this, and the Bachman and the history and all of that is really great. But you know, some people have sort of expressed as trying to do too many things, but it would be great to see what other earlier iterations you have done that might be more about what you really wish it could be, and then we can maybe help advance the conversation. Hank, did you want to say anything? Not to put you on the spot.
I hear what everyone's saying, but I also just kind of like it.
Okay? Yeah, but let's, so it's not a go back to the drawing board, it's just,
Maybe.
Make it more
That's it.
legible.
maybe make it more legible to your vision, which is a beautiful vision. Thank you.